Hello, crafters and artisans, and welcome back to Psychedelic Squid Fiber Arts. Today, I'm going to be showing you how to make a new wood footman for your spinning wheel. The supplies you'll need are new wood material for a footman. I used a 4-foot by 1.5 inch red oak board that was a 1/4 inch thick, ruler, pen or pencil, paper, drill with drill bits, jigsaw with a fine wood blade, sandpaper 120 through 220 grit, wood stain to match the existing finish, and hemp cord or leather for the footman tie. To start, you'll need to take the first measurement from the crank to the treadle. You'll want to make sure the crank head is as far down as it can go, and then measure to the treadle that's touching down. I got 16.5 inches for my wheel. Then, on a blank piece of paper, I'm going to subtract 1 inch from my measurement and draw a straight line that's 15.5 inches long. The other measurement that you'll need is the diameter of the crankhead. I'm calling it a crankhead here, but that's just the name I've given it. You'll also want to measure the straight distance from the crankhead to the part of the crank that then starts bending. For my wheel, that was 1/4 inch, so the width of the wood piece I got is perfect and it doesn't need to be thinned out. So, from the very top of my line, I'm going to measure down 3 inches and draw my 1/2 inch circle to the right of that for the crankhead to feed through. Then I'm going to sketch out a 1/4 inch groove for the crank to slide through to the top of the footman and stop a 1/2 inch from the end of my initial line. Then I'm going to add a 1/2 inch to the bottom of this line. Where the line originally ended, I'm going to put a hole for the footman tie. Now I'm going to draw perpendicular lines at each end, and then I'm going to mark out 3/4 of an inch above and below my initial line on these perpendicular lines to create the width of the board I have, so I know my physical constraints. From there, using any round or nicely angled items, I'm going to create half a profile of the footman I desire. I'm going to extend a section above the hole and groove I drew earlier. This was maybe an extra 3/4 inch past the end of the initial groove. This is what my profile looks like after I've stylized the footman. Now I'm going to fold it in half across that initial line and cut it out so I create a mirrored image. This is the result I created, and while I'm rather happy with its design, I felt like it didn't match the short and stubby feel of the wheel. So I redid it to match the main upright of the wheel. Now I'm going to trace it onto my wood piece. If you're having trouble with this, I like to use a glue stick to temporarily hold the paper in place. After that, we can cut it out with a jigsaw and sand the edges smooth, and the whole piece with 220 grit sandpaper. I would strongly recommend test fitting it at this stage to make sure it works without issue on your wheel. I also lightly scorched this piece off screen to match the existing wheel I'm making it for. Then stain it following the directions for your stain. And here is my very first test fit, which showed that it drags across the back leg on the downstroke. So I begrudgingly thinned it out, sanded it, and restained the piece, all without test fitting it again. So it still ended up dragging across that back leg. I ended up tying it off to the far side of the treadle, which fixed the issue. And I'll more than likely go back and make another treadle after I've marinated on this mistake for a little bit. Please leave any questions in the comments section below, and thank you all so much for exploring the depths of your creativity, and I'll see you next time.